Wrapping up chapter 3. The top of page 54. Charity, of course, is essentially spiritual, and a love of this kind can be no more than its first moment. It is too much bound up with the senses unless we know how to make use of it with prudence and to learn and to lean on it only as something to be surpassed. So how can charity be just something that can be surpassed? It's get into why it's limited. In expressing himself thus, Bernard merely codified the teachings of his own experience, for we have it from him that he was much given to the practice of this sensitive love at the outset of his conversion. Later on, he was to consider it in advance to have passed beyond it, to pass beyond charity. Not that is to say to have forgotten it, but to have added another which outweighs it, as the rational and spiritual outweigh the carnal. Nevertheless, the beginning is already a summit. Charity's great. It goes on to explain this. It relates to a sane theology. So this sensitive affection for Christ was always presented by St. Bernard as a love of a relatively inferior order. It is so precisely on account of its sensitive character. For charity is of a purely spiritual essence. In right, the soul should be able to enter directly into union in virtue of its spiritual powers with a God who is pure spirit. The incarnation, moreover, should be regarded as one of the consequences of man's transgression. The necessity for incarnation here, the reason why someone should bring spirituality from consciousness or truth is because, well, seeing yourself here is necessary. So that the love for the person of Christ is, as a matter of fact, bound up with the history of a fall which need not and should not have happened. St. Bernard furthermore, and in several places, notes that this affection cannot stand safely alone, but needs to be supported by what he calls a science, a sane theology, a right, correct way of being, like Buddhism talks about the Eightfold Path, right contemplation is the end of that. And so this would be the same theology that St. Bernard here speaks of. He had examples before him of the devastations into which even the most ardent devotion can fall when it is not allied with and ruled by a sane theology. Persecutions, war, inquisition. Can the many fantastic and mutually incompatible theories of expiation and atonement, which have been grafted onto the Christian doctrine of divine incarnation, be regarded as indispensable elements in a sane theology? No. I find it difficult, Huxley says, to imagine how anyone who has looked into a history of these notions, as expounded, for example, by the author of the Epistle of the Hebrews, by Athanasius and Augustine, by Anselm and Luther, by Calvin, anyway, all these examples can possibly answer this question in the affirmative, that a sane theology exists within religion. The dogma takes over. In the present context, it would be enough to call attention to one of the bitterest of all the bitter ironies of history. For the Christ of the Gospels, lawyers seem further from the kingdom of heaven, more hopelessly impervious to reality. Lawyers would be those who fight for law, whether good nor neither good nor bad. It's just, well, the law is the most important thing, and it's obviously not. Than almost any other class of human beings except the rich. And now the rich wouldn't just be monetary in value, in knowledge and self, and rich in self. Those are your true attachments to what you believe is wealth, as it were. So talks about this Christian theology, especially that of Western churches, was the product of minds imbued with Jewish and Roman legalism. In all too many instances, the immediate insights of the avatar and the theocentric saint were rationalized into a system. And that's where we go wrong. That's the problem that lies in most religions right now. Need to kind of let that go. Let's stick to the intent, not the letter, right? Not by philosophers, but by speculative barristers, metaphysical jurists. Why should what Abbot John Chapman calls the problem of reconciling, not merely uniting, mysticism and Christianity be so extremely difficult? It doesn't need to be, simply because so much Roman and Protestant thinking was done by those very lawyers whom Christ regarded as being peculiarly incapable of understanding the true nature of things. So, speaking to this, you can squeeze it all out, and the full mystical theory, in other words, the pure perennial philosophy, remains. It's in there. It's in there. It's just overlaid. Consequently, for 15 years or so, I hated St. John of the Cross and called him a Buddhist. I loved St. Teresa and read her over and over again. She is first a Christian and only secondarily a mystic. And then I found I had wasted 15 years, so far as prayer was concerned. Bottom of the page here, 55. In other words, there must be imitation of Christ before there can be identification with the Father, imitation of Christ, the Tao, Buddhism, Buddha, and there must be essential identity or likeness between the human spirit and the God who is spirit, in order that the idea of imitating the earthly behavior of the incarnate Godhead should ever cross anybody's mind. Christian theologians speak of the possibility of deification, but deny that there is an identity of substance between spiritual reality, human spirit, and Vedanta, however, right? And Mahayana Buddhism, as also among the Sufis, spirit, soul, and spirit capitalized, are held to be the same substance. Permeates everything, Atman and Brahman, that art thou. Here's someone called Huineng. He says, when not enlightened, Buddhas are no other than ordinary beings. When there is enlightenment, ordinary beings at once turn into Buddhas. And it would seem that wrapping up this third chapter of Personality, Sanctity, Divine Incarnation, we come here. This is good. Every human being can thus become an avatar. Every human being can thus become an avatar by adoption, but not by his unaided efforts. He must be shown the way, and he must be aided by divine grace. It's not something you earn, it's something you have. You must, spirit and spirit are supposed to be the same substance. That men and women may be thus instructed and helped. The Godhead assumes the form of an ordinary human being who has to earn deliverance and enlightenment in the way that is prescribed by the divine nature of things, namely, by charity, by a total dying to self and a total one-pointed awareness. Like the soldier, the saint, one-pointed awareness. Thus enlightened, the avatar can reveal the way of enlightenment to others and help them actually to become what they already potentially are. And of course, the eternity which transforms us into ourselves, capital, is not the experience of mere persistence after bodily death. There will be no experience of timeless reality then, unless there is the same or similar knowledge within the world of time and matter. You don't get to do it after. You have to do it now, here. If it's not here and now, it's not going to work. By precept and by example, the avatar teaches that this transforming knowledge is possible, that all sentient beings are called to it, and that sooner or later, in one way or another, all must finally come to it.